Um, I thought in the past, there's been some struggle with the 4-H STEM challenges and not really knowing what's going on. I want to preface this by letting all of you know that I am not a science person. I know very little about STEM, but I did take the last couple of weeks to order my own kit and to use it with classroom here in Laramie, and also with my kids at our kitchen table. So at least I can give you some pointers or show you what's going on. So none of you have your kits unless you order them on your own. Talked with Karen this morning, and the kits are all set to arrive in your offices tomorrow. So once you get them, if you have additional questions or more, want to know more, feel free to reach out to me. Like I said, my kids have done this. My husband's class did it. So I've done it with an 8-year-old and 4th through 6th graders. So just kind of to know the age range that we're working with. This week, and I'm going to pause my share because then you can at least see me bigger maybe. This is the kit and what it looks like. I guess it's backwards. It's called Mars Base Camp this year. So the kit will come in a box. This is the family kit. So you'll see it's pretty skinny. And your kits will be the educator kit. They're going to be about this much bigger. So double this size. I have one in my truck. I just didn't bring it in. This kit contains enough for 1 to 4 kids. The educator kit that you're getting is going to contain enough for basically 4 to 12 kids. So there is triple the materials in the educator kit. So Mary Louise, as you can see, it's not much bigger. It's a little bit bigger, but not much bigger than what they are. If you are going to work with more than 12 kids, I would highly suggest you order more kits. If you think you're going to have a group of 20 or a group of anything over 12, you really need a secondary kit. They're pretty cheap this year because I don't know who it was, maybe it's Google. They're paying $10 of the kit fee. So like the family kit, which is for 1 to 4 kids, is like only $15. And I think that the other educator kits are 20 or 25. And you order those on the website, which is where I just was. And I'll go back there because you're going to need that website to do a couple of one of the activities. So when you open up your kit, probably the one thing that's the most used aspect of it is, looks like this when you get it, and it smells terrible, so be ready for it. It's a map of Mars. Oh, it's really gross smelling. So maybe you should open it ahead of time because it's really that bad. It kind of makes you want to pass out or something. So it's a huge map of Mars, which you can't see, but it's divided into, there's some paper here, sorry. It's divided into 16 sections. So there are 16 Mars sections, A1 through 4, B1 through 4, C1 through 4, and D1 through 4. And so for 2 of the activities, you'll be using that map. It's a pretty decent map. It has lots of cool, shows you where the different like canyons and sandstorms and different things are happening on Mars. So you can actually see them, so you'll be able to point those out to the kids. I would highly suggest, if you know nothing about Mars, which would be me, that you take 10 minutes to watch a YouTube video. Or if you're really not into YouTube and not into history, watch a movie. Matt Damon did a movie about Mars. It's not realistic, but at least it would give you a better idea of what you're talking about so you don't look like you have no clue. So Away is on Netflix right now, and it's about a trip to Mars. So at least it gives you some verbiage. It's definitely not a documentary. It's more like a family drama movie, but I would highly suggest you take a few minutes just to watch something Mars related so that you can sound like you might know something. The classroom we went to, some kid knew way more than I don't even know if he really knew, but he was telling me all kinds of things and I was like, oh great, and pretended I knew what was happening, and yeah. So also in
Where did you say that was?
The movies. So I would just watch a movie or go to Netflix and watch something about Mars that you know. So Away is that's probably not the best one, but Matt Damon did a movie called Mars. If you're bored, it's actually a really good movie. So you want to watch it, but otherwise I just go to Netflix, Google facts about Mars and watch something, or YouTube, watch facts about Mars for like 10 minutes or something, just so you kind of have an idea of a few things you could talk about. There's a couple facts in the packet, but it's not terribly great. So also in the packet, you're going to find a facilitator guide. So Amber, I heard, but they're coming to your office tomorrow, so I'm sorry.
I did not hear that.
Yeah, so Karen said she emailed you, but obviously not yet. So all of the kits are arriving tomorrow. According to their tracking numbers, they're all coming tomorrow. So in it, you'll get this. It's a facilitator's guide. It goes through each one of the activities. And Amber, I can email you some of this stuff if you want to look at it ahead of time, because it's on a flash drive, or Mary Louise could upload it. We can upload it to Teams or Google Docs or whatever you like to use. But you can get some of the activities via a flash drive. The facilitator's guide is great, especially if you don't like some of the stuff. Like if you don't like to present, you can read scripts in here. I think that was our goal, Mary Louise and I, going into the thing, but then I took over and didn't read a script, and so we never read the script, but the scripts are pretty decent. So if you want to read them, it's in the facilitator's guide, and it basically step-by-step tells you what to do. There's also a youth guide. We also didn't really use the youth guide, but you could. In the family kit, there are 2, and I believe in the educator kit, I thought there was 4, but maybe there's 8 because it's triple, or maybe there's 6 because it's triple what you have. So Mary Louise is going to count them while I talk about this. But it has a place where they can record stuff, and this is available on a flash drive that you'll get with your kit. So if you want to make extra copies for your kids, that'd be fine. For those of you who maybe joined a little bit later, just to know, I highly suggest if you're going to do more than 12 kids, order a second kit today so you get it, because the kit really is only for 12 kids. I think if you do more than 12, you're going to have a lot of people just sitting around doing nothing. And so we had 18, but we had 2 boxes. So we were able to work groups of 3 per item, or 4 is probably the best.
There's 12 youth guides.
Okay, so there's 12 youth guides, 1 for each youth in that thing. And in the family one, there's 2. Okay, so I'm going to tell you about the first activity. The first activity involves this little guy, and he is attached to a parachute. So his goal is to launch into space and land on Mars. And it's really actually pretty nifty. They actually got Air Force guys. So this little Air Force guy, drop him, he launches into Mars. So what you do is you set up the map that I showed you earlier, and then the kids throw their little guy, and they try to land on Mars. So you can do this a couple of ways. The way that we chose to do it was when they landed, they had a Post-it note with their name on it, and we stuck it to the map, and then that was the section they got. And so there are section cards that are part of the map activity. So basically, once you land on a section, I told you there was A1, B1, B2, you get a card that describes the section. So the preface I have is we did 4th through 6th graders and it worked okay. The words on here are crazy, ridiculously difficult because they describe satellites and places on Mars. And so what the activity tells you to do is have the kids read through the card and share something factual. So each kid or each group of kids got a card. In our case, there were 16 kids, which worked out great. So they each got a card because there's 16 of them, and they then were supposed to read this card and tell us a fact about it. However, most of the 4th through 6th graders couldn't read any of the names of satellites, those kind of things. So they really struggled with that part. So you may want to think of ways to redo the way that you do this activity. Maybe once they land together as a group, you read the card and then you pick out a fact, or you look at the space on Mars and try to figure out what something is. I'm not sure what the best way to do it was. It worked fine in the classroom setting because we had older kids, but if you have like 7, 8, 9-year-olds, I think you're going to struggle with the cards because the words are pretty crazy out here. So how
many kids did you do it with?
We did it with 16 kids. So, and we each gave them their own card. So if you had more than 16, or if you had older, younger kids, you could double up. Have the younger kid throw the parachute, have the older kid on a team look through the card, and together they could decide what they want to do. The cards are super cool and they are printable. So these are actually included on the flash drive. So if you wanted a double or triple set, or wanted to give everybody a set so they could all look through them while you told about facts, that might make it easier too. My husband asked to keep his set of cards that I brought in because he's excited to share them at a different time. when they're talking about Mars or when they want to do some of the research on their own, because the pictures and the things on them are actually really well written. The problem is the Mariner orbiter is probably the easiest satellite to say. The rest of them are crazy. So, but there's 16 cards, one for each section for the kids to read. So that's the first activity. So basically you parachute your little guy onto Mars. If you read through the facilitator's guide, they also have an option where you can say that their launch was unsuccessful. And so then they don't get a point for their team, or they don't get a card, but we chose when we did it just to make it easy and let them rethrow until they had a successful launch. So I think the launching part for the younger kids is going to be the exciting part versus the actual cards and reading more about them. So that's activity 1.
So you just launch them and they read facts? I'm a hands-on.
Yep.
I gotta
Yep. So here's the map. You lay this on the ground and see the squares here. Like that's 1 square. That's A2 right there.
And then they just read the facts off of their cards.
That matches with that square. Yep. And so there's 16 squares, and the squares in the corner, A1, A4, D1, and D4 are all about satellites. And the rest of the squares, A2, 3, B1 through 4, C1 through 4, and D2, 3 are all about the places on Mars within that square. So it'll talk about a crater that's there, or a storm that hit, or a canyon that's there. And then what we did is we actually hung the map up after they launched it, and we tried to find what those parts of the crater looked like. So if it was the canyon in B2, we tried to find that canyon and point it out to the kids, or have the kids come point that part out. And whether or not we were right, we didn't really care. We just said, oh yeah, that must be here. And it sounded good, and they were excited about that. So to get to see that on the map. Good questions, Amber. All right.
Hey, Sarah, did you say you did this in person or on virtually?
We did this in person. We did not do it virtually. I'm not sure how you would do it virtually. And I think that's why they have family kits this year, is that to encourage possibly having families purchase them and doing it virtually. I mean, I feel like most of them are in-person activities. I don't think you could do most of them virtually. So
I think the only way that you could do it virtually is if everybody had all of the materials.
Yep.
I mean, if they had the little person so that they could land it on their own map.
Yep.
I mean, you could do it, but it would take a lot of really coaxing those kids to stay engaged, I think.
And I think that's why they're choosing to offer a family kit this year, was for that purpose. And the family kit's pretty affordable. Like I said, I think it's only like $10 or $15, so it's not terribly priced. So on Tuesday of National 4-H Week, I will do a similar event like this, just to talk about the activities with parents, to let them know what's in the kits, and then encourage them to buy kits. So you may think about possibly having Science Day, Fun Day towards the end of the month virtually, if that's what you're choosing to do, and you could host something where parents can do it. But parents honestly could do all of it themselves if you don't want to do that, because a facilitator guide is really well written to let parents do this individually at home with 1 to 4 kids. So I did it, part of my activities with 2 of our kids, and most of the activities just the 8-year-old and I did together yesterday. Good question. Yep, so we did it in the classroom with 16 kids, and then I did it at home with our kids here at home. So that way I could see the difference and also make sure we got through all the activities. So this activity didn't take tons of time. I think if you chose to maybe have them launch until they actually got to it, we also had them like stand above the map and drop it. If you want to make it more challenging, have them have to like actually launch from a location, which is what the book says to do, like to put a tape 2 or 3 feet back and then have them throw it. I think it'll take you longer to get the kids to get to the map. So just kind of depending on how much time you want to spend, or where you want to spend your time, could depend how you do the activity. Like I said, we just had the kids stand above the map, and then they moved their hand around like this and then dropped the parachute, where I think the actual activity has them standing back farther and like actually launching their guy into space, where that wasn't how it worked for the situation we were in. So,
because the guy doesn't fly very well.
No, he doesn't. And I think you probably have, and there's only 4 of them. So if you got the educator kit, you get 4 of these guys. So the thought, what we did, that's why we used the Post-it notes to put their name down. So every kid got to launch their own. So I almost feel like you'd have to have a practice run to figure out how he flies before you would launch him if you're looking to actually like physically launch him out, because that part, it was interesting. Towards the end, some of the kids were doing that, but for the most part, they were just dropping it to try to get on their spot. Because he doesn't.
Why do you need a Post-it note?
So there's 16, there's the 60. So you can do it one of 2 ways. You could just hand them their card when they launch, when they get on the spot. We put the Post-it notes on so that people knew that card was already gone. So that way, if the 4th kid was going and they launched it onto B2, the Post-it note had the kid's name on it that had already landed on B2 to let them know that B2 was taken. So it was kind of like a marker in bingo or something where you just basically covered that spot to say, hey, it's over. And the Post-it notes are in the kit. So you don't have to purchase those. They come inside the kit. So you can use them for this and other activities if you want to. But it was basically like a marker to let them know that that space was taken. All right. I'm gonna move on to the second activity. The second activity is, I don't even know what it's called, but it basically is getting a robot across Mars. And I am interested, this one didn't work for us quite like I thought it would, but it's called Red Planet Odyssey. And so now that you've talked about rovers and satellites, the goal is that you build your own. So this is what it looks like. It does not come assembled. So it comes in a bag with parts. I don't have any of those left because we assembled all of them. So here's the kicker. If you do it more than once, it will be very hard to unassemble and reassemble this because of the screws. I think you might strip them. So the first time you do it, it takes about an hour for the kids to assemble this robot. My 8-year-old, she did it pretty much by herself, took about an hour. We did groups of 3 at the school, 4th through 6th graders, it took about an hour. So if you don't want to spend an hour assembling a robot, then I would suggest pre-assembling them. And if it's your first time, know that you're going to spend an hour assembling robots. And if it's your second or third time, know that you won't spend an hour assembling robots. You may be able to take some wheels off or do something if you choose, but that part is not going to work out well for you. So, and you have to bring your own batteries. They are not provided in the kit. So make sure you have enough AA's. There's 2 per rover. So if you're doing all 3 that are in your kit, you're going to want to make sure you have 6 batteries, AA's. So this is what it's very simple. There's no sensor on it. It just goes straight. And I think that was the hard part for me, is the activity tells you to put up cones and barriers and have the kids build something to get them around the barriers from one place on Mars to the other. And Mary Louise, if you feel differently, let me know. But I think really the rover just goes straight. It's almost impossible to get it to turn. So we just had them build something that got the rover in a straight line from A1 to D4. So basically diagonally across Mars. Mary Louise tried a group to get them to do around some cones, and I'm not sure that they ever quite got it, because it basically just, when it runs into something, it stops. So.
And it has to be a pretty big something, because we did straws and pencils and what else that it just would run over.
So the kids towards the end decided that their job was to make a tower at the end of Mars to crash into to see if they could knock it over. So that's kind of what they ended up doing. So
yeah, I mean, I think, letting them be creative and try different things, just have a bunch of stuff that's, I think it's fine for them to figure out that it doesn't turn, and then let them kind of change the challenge. Don't be stuck on that they've got to get around the canyon on Mars. Just be that they're doing something as a group.
So the putting the robots together was awesome to watch. So honestly, if you want to spend some time taking them all apart, it might be worth it, because really that's where there was some great group activity, kids working together. They were super excited about it. So you may want to spend some time taking them apart now that I think about this, because that really was the cool part. The struggle with the robots, just to give you some heads ups. So I'm going to show you in my camera. these are the gears that make the robot go. So I'm gonna maybe, is it working? Nope. Oh, there we go. So the gears make the robot go. Okay. This gear right here, this one where my thumb is the one that has to loosen up. So you're gonna put that one in first. It's, whoops. Don't tell my kid I just broke her robot. She'll be super sad. She's very excited for herself yesterday. So right here, you're gonna screw this one in as the first one. So it's the middle gear. So the issue is if you screw it in too tight, it doesn't actually move when you try to put the gears together. So in turn, that may be one of the issues you have if your robot's not working. So far, all of ours have worked, so it hasn't been terrible, but that part, we've had to adjust on all of them to make it a little bit looser than what it originally was. The motor goes on top of it. The motor screws to put in were super difficult for a lot of kids. So parents or adults had to help them get those started. And so you can see those there. So suggestions just to make your life easier is not putting the motor in until you get, I took it out, until you get that part screwed down. So once you screw down the motor casing, then putting the motor in seemed to work better because they couldn't hold the motor in while they tried to put the screws in. So that part was a little bit difficult for kids. So just some suggestions to make your life easier. The other thing that I found, and my kids didn't do it right either, is that they put the robot and the motor on the opposite sides of where they were supposed to go. So you can see with the two holes up here is where your motor is supposed to go. And then on the other end where the battery pack goes, there's no additional like that little hole right there. So just kind of watching their where the stuff goes. And so the instructions are included. They're not very descriptive, but they are in with them. And my 8-year-old followed them pretty well. She had about 2 or 3 questions yesterday, but she did most of it herself. And science isn't her thing either, so she was pretty excited about it. So I think that if you just help them with a couple of the screws, they can follow the directions and make their STEM rover pretty much on their own. And so then we just had them, like I said, set up an obstacle course for their rover to go through. It needs to be a straight one because it doesn't turn. But that's the second activity. So are there any questions about that one?
Yes, this activity really confuses me because I don't understand the challenge part or really where, like, you know, design your rover, but there's only one way to build it. So
it's build your rover, not design your rover. I think that you can change some wording within how you present it. So it's build a rover to go across Mars. And by going across Mars, it's really just a straight shot. So I agree with you, Emily. I was confused also because I thought it was going to do a lot cooler things than it did, but it doesn't. But I'm telling you, the building process for the kids was awesome. So taking it apart and letting them rebuild it is pretty cool. It comes, your kit will come with robots. Yep.
If we don't have an hour, because I have an hour total, but I've got like 40 to 50 kids. And but so if we don't, then it's just taking them from point A to B. So maybe making a tower or something for them to crash into. Yep.
That would probably be your best bet. And a couple, because there's only 3 kits, the other thing you can look at, Amber, which I think is described in the materials too, is doing stations. And so you could have them work on Mars while someone else is working the robot while somebody else is playing a game. So you may have them rotate around because you're not going to have enough, you're going to have enough canasta cards, which is the next activity to really do 12 kids. And so that is really, I mean, the kit literally is for 12 kids or less. So
how many robots are in the kit? Just one?
3.
3.
Yep. So 1 per 4 kids. Emily, does that help you at all? It's not the best. The way it's written, it doesn't actually work that way. And so I think it's good to know going into it that really it's about building the robot together and using the process that they describe and then trying to build a course to send it straight and giving it something like some goal to achieve.
Yeah, I guess I'll just have to try it. Or maybe I won't do it at all actually because I don't like that particular one. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't seems really easy and maybe boring and like, okay, so now you set it down and you push go and it gets there and we're done. Like where was the challenge and the
just so you know, the kids loved it though. Like they loved this activity. They were super excited about it. So even though it didn't seem like a big deal to me, when the 4th through 6th graders did it, I was like, oh, okay, your robot goes straight. They're like, oh, this is so cool. And they were building towers and got really excited about it. So
they did or did not build them in your class?
they did build the robots in our class, but we had almost 2.5 hours to do our activities and we only got through 2 of them. We didn't get through the 3rd one. So yeah. And maybe the other, go ahead.
I think that's a challenge with all of these National Science Day things is sometimes I'm like Emily, what's the point? Like, I don't get it. What's the challenge? Like, why? But I think, yeah.
My thought process is the reason behind this one is to talk about the engineering process, design process. I think that was the goal of the second activity. It doesn't really have to do anything with Mars, but really focuses on the engineering design process and how that works. So if you, when you get your facilitator's guide, it goes through ask, imagine, plan, create, test, improve. And so that's what they want the kids to focus on with this activity.
Because they did have to do some things. I mean, yes, they do just put it together. They don't design it. But yet they had to do some finagling on to make sure that the engine part, like they had it in the right direction, not upside down. And they had to, they knew basically how the gears worked, but they had to move those around a little bit to truly make them work. And like, they didn't just pop their batteries in and they worked. I think there was only one of them that they popped their batteries in and it worked. I think the other 5 had to finagle some things around so that it would work. And yeah, it does seem awfully basic when you're just reading it. But you got to remember, it's still hands-on for the kids, and they're kids. And so there's still a little bit of, oh, wow, you put a battery in and it works.
Okay. Any other questions about the rover? And so that's the second one that you'll use the Mars map for. Possibly, if you want it to rove across there. Okay, then the last activity is the game of Canasta. And if you've ever played Canasta, this game will frustrate you to no end because it doesn't make sense. But if you haven't played Canasta and you lay it, it'll be great. So the goal is to collect, and I struggled with this one a lot. And I tried to play it with my 8-year-old and it wasn't working. And so I went online and watched a video that Oklahoma State did about this activity. And I'm not sure that they did it correctly, but they did it much better than the book explained it to me. And so I kind of use that as my go-to point. So you'll have, per group, you'll have this card. So in your bigger kits, there's gonna be 4 of these cards. So you can have teams of 4, 2 teams of 4, so 8 kids. And you have 3, so this one, you have 3 of these Canasta card games. They look like this, Mars Crop Game, and I took the cards out. You have 3 of these in your kit. Mine has 1. And each one could probably allow 4 kids to play. So this one, it looks like that would be 12 kids again. So you're gonna have 6 of these cards in your kit. These are the cards that tell about the Canasta they got. So they say grow lights, growth medium, container, soil test kit, thermostat, atmosphere generator, water, fertilizer, trellis, and plant seed. And so the goal is to collect all of these things so that you can grow plants on Mars. And so the cards all have these things on them. So this one is the soil test kit. So you shuffle the deck. You deal 11 to each player. So if there's 4 players, it's teams of 2. Yesterday I played with my 8-year-old, so it was her and I against each other. And the goal is to get sets of 3 in order to put a green chips on top of the different things to show that you got them. So if you get 3, so you have 11 to each person. If you have a pair of 3 or 3 of a kind, you lay them down and then you get to put your green chip on it. And then the next person goes, so you either pick one up or you pick one off the discard pile and you try to get your 3 of a kind. So if you've ever played Canasta, and if you haven't, then don't listen to this. But if you ever played Canasta, you know that there are red threes and wilds and jokers. So they have similar items in these, but they don't work as well. So here's how I would suggest you play this game. There are wilds. You're going to use those to get 3 of a kind. There are also, now I can't find them, sabotages and something that starts with a D. They obviously didn't like them, so they're all at the bottom of this pile. Okay, disasters. So when you play this game, and you can read this in the kit, if like there's a card that you want in the pile, like of cards stacked up, then you can actually pick up the whole pile and you can use all the cards. So the disasters and the sabotages, so here's the sabotage, there's different ones, but there's an example of one. And here's the disaster card. Again, they're all red. They may say different disasters, and these are all black. When the kids play those, it means the next kid isn't allowed to pick up or pick off the pile. And so they talk about using a sabotage card to take away one of your green chips. However, that didn't work well. I would highly suggest not doing that. I would just use a sabotage and the disaster cards to say that the next person isn't allowed to pick up the whole pile. That seemed to work well. And it took Adele and I about 20 to 30 minutes to complete the game that way when we played it yesterday. So basically, once you get 3 laid down, put a card on. Once all of these are filled up, then you become the winner. So I found at the beginning, which was super frustrating to me, she would go out after like 3 hands, and then I would be like, what do we do? Because she has no cards left. So if you read the directions, which I obviously didn't very well, it says if somebody goes out, you collect everybody's cards back up and you restart the game with keeping the sets that you got already in front of you. And so basically your goal is to continue to keep going until somebody gets all 8 sets. If you get, I don't know what they call it in the book, but it's a canasta, which is 7 of a kind, then you get to remove a chip from the other team's card. So if you got 7 plant seeds, you get to say, hey, you have a grow light, take the grow light off, and you have to start over and try again to get a grow light. Without the cards in front of you, this one is a little bit confusing. But if you get the cards in front of you and call me, we can go through what this looks like and I can talk to you more about it. Otherwise, like I said, I Googled Crop Curiosity from Oklahoma State and watched them play their game with the kids, and it made more sense to me. The cards that are confusing are the sabotage and disaster cards. So for those, I would just suggest making them the next person's turn is picking off the pile and not picking up the whole pile, because that seemed to work well when we tried that the second or third time around that we tried to play the game. So that is the third activity that goes with the kit. It's basically a card game. Like I said, that one's harder to do when you're not sitting in front of it, but we played it, and after a couple times it worked out pretty well, and I'd be more than willing to have that talk if you're not sure what that looks like. Are there any questions? I see Emily has her kit, so maybe do you have any questions, Emily, about that one?
Yep, I'm actually kind of excited about that one. I thought it, when I attended the national how-to thingy, it made a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think watching a video or watching them play that one makes more sense, because that one I struggled with a lot. So the last activity in the kit is to do Scratch, or to basically program on a computer. And I think they have this activity. I'll be really honest, I've never ever worked with these before, but I think they have this activity every year. They do some type of Scratch, which is a way to program a computer activity. And so this basically, you're making a story about a rover on Mars. And I said, hey, we should do this yesterday, and I'm glad we did, because I think that if I wouldn't have done this, I would be super confused. So when you're doing this activity, I'm going to share my screen, and this one is super fun. So you could have 2 or 3 kids around a computer. So if you have access to Chromebooks, I told my husband yesterday that I think he would actually like this one at his school, so he might do it as a activity. But you're going to go to the website and you're going to scroll down to this Mars base camp and get started. Right here is where the coding part is, I hope. Oh yeah, okay. And then you basically go to, I thought it just took me, oh, start coding, sorry. And so do you guys see the new screen or do you see the original one? Do you see a little rover? Okay, perfect. So this part for me was super confusing. If you've never worked with Scratch, I would suggest taking some time to go check this out before you try to teach it, because I think I would really struggle. So this button right here makes it a full screen, which is great. And then there is, oh, I need to minimize all of you. This is where I got confused yesterday too. So, see, I'm confused today, equally as confused as I was yesterday. See inside. So up here, you have to, in order to work this, and they don't really tell you this part of the instructions, and maybe they do, I just didn't read it, but you click see inside, and that allows you to see what's happening inside of the process. And so the cards, which I'm going to try to show you, can't see myself, so okay. The cards all come, they're probably hard to see because they're small, all come with what you're going to do in the front. So it says you're going to program sprites or people to continue to have a conversation. And in the back, it tells you exactly what to do. And at first, this was a big struggle, but my 8-year-old loved it. And then at the end, she was doing it all by herself, and I got to walk away. So knowing what you're doing will help. But this cat down here is how you find sprites, and it says choose a sprite, and then it'll pop up all these people, and you can make a ballerina a sprite, and you're supposed to have 2, and this Abby chick can be a sprite. So if you look on my screen here, I can move Abby and the ballerina around, and then you can program them to talk to each other. So if you click on her, she's going to appear right here in the corner of that white box. And then in order to make her talk, it tells you what to do. So you go to events, when clicked, it says you want to wait. And this is all in the card. So when you see the cards, it'll tell you exactly what to do. Say, what is this doing here? So this is what the card tells me to do. What is for 2 seconds, and then I need to wait 2 seconds, and then I'm gonna say again. Okay, so the ballerina, this is what she's gonna do. And then after you do the ballerina, you need to click on your other sprite or your other person. And you can see she now appeared in the top right-hand corner of the white box. And you're gonna do something for her. So it says that when clicked, she is going to wait for 4 seconds. And then she's going to say, for 4 seconds. Okay, so then if you test it, then it says test it out. So if you guys watch the right hand of the screen where the ballerina and Abby are, it'll actually work, hopefully. So she says, what is this doing here? Then she says, I don't know. And then she says, it looks scary. And so it basically goes through, in the next card, you add a title page to it. And the next card, the rover flashes and changes from red to green. And then it gets bigger and littler. And the next one, it bounces around on the screen. And then that's actually all the farther we got before we had to leave. But it basically goes through, and every card tells you exactly what to do and exactly how to do it. And it was super easy. And my 8-year-old thought it was pretty cool. She wanted to do it again last night. We didn't find any time, but I think that it's an easy way for the kids to be able to get on their computers and do some easy programming and help them understand kind of how commands work. So it's a 9-part process from beginning to end, where you basically choose 2 characters that get you through a story to tell you about what's going on with this Mars rover that's happening. So, and these cards are also on the flash drive. So you can also use those that if you needed to print out extra sets, because I think you could put one kid at a computer to do this by themselves, or you can work in teams or groups of 3 or 4 would probably also work. So that's the fourth part, the Scratch programming part, that you would need computers to be able to do that. So that is all. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen now. That is all I know about the Science Day kits. So Mary Louise, any other insight that you want to add or any questions I can help anybody answer? All right, so everything you need comes in the kit except for the batteries. So, and like I said, it really works best for 12 kids if you're gonna have over 12 kids. Then it may work for 36 if you rotate them around into 3 stations. Beyond that, you may want to look at some other activities you can find about Mars, maybe crafts or something, because I don't know that this was designed to be anything more than that. In the chat box, it does say, how do you order more kits? So we'll just go back to this robot thing. So this Insight from Mars activity here, if you go down, it will say, if you haven't purchased a STEM challenge kit, you can access them here. So you can go there, and this will have some of the downloading stuff, or it actually has the kits that you can order. So you can go there, and it takes about 7 days to get them. So here, oh, now it's up even more, but it was 7 days. So you can see if that actually is what works out, or if they have too many kits. You can maybe even call them if you want to. But I was gonna see how much they are here just to kind of give you a heads up. So the family kit is $15.99, and you get, yeah, there it is. You get a $5 off coupon. So I think it ends up being $10.95 because they have a sponsor who's paying for part of it. That's where you would order the kits. And then the educator kit is $23.95, and I believe there's also a $5 off, so it ends up being like $18.95. So
if we requested 2 from Jonathan's thing, will we get that, or we just get 1?
Karen ordered all of them, so I actually couldn't tell you. I can email her and ask her to let you know, but if you ordered 2, my guess is she probably sent you 2. However, once again, she did all that on her own P card and didn't share that with us. So if you don't hear from her, let me know, but I can send her an email to ask her how many kits she ordered for each county.
I ordered 2 and I got 2, Amber. Maybe that's another question for Karen too, is that I knew the state office was going to pay for 1. Are they paying for 2 if we requested 2?
Yeah, everything if it was mailed to you and you didn't pay for it, it's at your office and you don't have to pay for it. So yours came already. When did it come, Emily? Yesterday?
Yesterday.
Huh, odd. Maybe yours will come today, because she said all of the tracking devices said they weren't coming till tomorrow. So it's interesting that Emily got hers already.
I rescheduled. I was supposed to do it today.
That's what I knew that. So I was trying to get it there. I asked Karen this morning if she could look, and she said she looked yesterday. They were all coming tomorrow. So worst case.
She never called, and I haven't gotten an email yet from her today.
Sorry, because I said, could you make sure you email Amber? And she said yes. So I will. That's what
Maybe she emailed Janet.
Could be. Okay. So that's where the extra kits are. I have to stop sharing so I can see Facebook. All right, so like I said, you may want to spend some time, depending on what your group size is, looking for that 4th activity or something else you can do. Just knowing kind of the things we've done over the last 3 months, you may want to look at possibly doing a Kahoot or something else interactive with these cards, because I think that they have a lot of cool information on them, but it may be too overwhelming if you have younger kids. So that may be awful. Christy, you asked if we can share this video with volunteers that are using the kits. Yes. The other option I would highly suggest that may be more beneficial for them is that next week, Tuesday evening, I'll be doing this for parents and volunteers. So as part of National 4-H Week on Tuesday, it is, I think it's Tuesday, is the STEM day. I'm focusing on STEM challenges. And so I'm going to go through this in a little bit less detail, probably more focused on families, to help them understand what a kit is and what's in the kit. And so it may be a great place to send them so they could ask questions and be interactive that evening also. If they're using the kits before that, yes, I will put this YouTube video out as soon as we're done here. But I would highly recommend that they maybe attend that so that they could then ask questions based on if they have them directly, if they've seen the kit. Seeing the kit makes it a little bit easier, but I know my goal on Tuesday is to promote the kits, that if families want to do it themselves, that they know how to get them and what kind of things are included with them. All right, I'm going to stop my recording.